Welcome to Kauai, the favorite vacation spot of Alexis McGee, president of foreclosures.com. Alexis is here with her personally trained coaches and some of her lab graduates. They're discussing business opportunities and reflecting upon how her intensive 3-day lab experience has changed their lives. This conversation begins with Alexis talking about how she first got started in the real estate business. So put on some sunscreen, pull up a lounge chair, and pretend you're in Hawaii pondering the big question: to lab or not to lab?
Back in the 80s, I was going to college at Arizona State, and there I was taking these real estate classes, loving it, and deciding I want to be a real estate investor. And in that time that I was going to college, I ran into Tim on a spring break trip. And by the end of the week, I'm like, I like this guy.
She takes you from A to Z. You're gonna go through the whole thing. You get you out of your comfort zone, and it gets you actually doing it.
So I decided to be a commercial property agent. Well, at the time, commercial property agents were all men, and so I decided to get an internship with Grubb & Ellis and work for free.
And the minute I hit lab and I walked into the whole experience, I knew this is where I belonged.
So when we got married and we ended up moving to Sacramento, it was because Grubb & Ellis in Phoenix said, we have a job for you and you can work in Sacramento, but not in commercial real estate, as a secretary, as a researcher. And so I would do my real estate job that they paid me for, and then I would be making cold calls on the side and at lunch and in the evenings. And I finally landed a listing with a syndicator who had $12 million worth of real estate, and he said, where's your boss? And I showed up. I was like, oh no, I'm the commercial real estate expert for your area. You know, so I basically won him over and came back to the office, and the broker looked at me and he goes, you're a researcher, you're not an agent. I said, I know that. So I'm trying to decide if I should fill in Grubb & Ellis, Coldwell Banker, or Marcus & Millichap down as the broker for this transaction, and I'm giving you first shot. And they're like, oh, okay, you're hired. So I got a job as a commercial real estate woman. I think the second one ever in the company.
And I'll just be candid about it. If you're leaning on the fence and you think it's easy and you're just gonna go to this lab and hire a coach, like late night TV, do the Samantha Bewitched thing and you're gonna be successful, I wouldn't do it. But if you truly want a new life, Alexis is the real deal.
I was Rookie of the Year and went on and started selling more property, and then the market changed and the Tax Reform Act came along in 1986, and now all of a sudden there was a banking crisis, high interest rates, foreclosures going through the roof, and properties were going back to the banks and nobody knew what to do with them. So I started working bank-owned properties. And I grew that to become national director of REO for the company. I had revenue share, I was traveling all over, I was in hotel rooms constantly. I absolutely hated it.
In my opinion, it would be like if you read a book from Donald Trump about doing what he does, and then he offers, hey, come spend 3 days with me and I'll show you hands-on what I do. I don't think anybody would question the value in that.
At the same time, Tim was doing the same thing. He had left the newspaper business and he was working sales and he was all over the country. We would literally meet at airports to visit each other. And it was actually on a 1-week trip to Hawaii. And Tim looked at me and he goes, I'm done. And then 6 months later, I quit. And in that time period, we bought this little company, Daily Default, which had the foreclosure list that I was using for my REO director job. And then Tim said, oh, I can grow that thing. And he grew it. It took a while. It took a while for me to get the courage, and I know how that is. It's hard. It's hard to make that kind of sacrifice, to quit your job, to do something that has no pay, and have no income for a year.
Her content is incredible. It's all ready for somebody that wants to roll up their sleeves, work hard, do the things that she and we tell you to do. And I flat out seen it there. I've seen extremely successful students come right out of the gate and do well.
I had been married for almost 19 years, and my husband decided he wanted a divorce. We were in business together. I had given up my career in the travel industry when we first got married. I found myself at age 58, no retirement income, no savings, and really not knowing what in the heck I was going to do with my future. And so I started looking at how could I make some money without having any to begin with.
Got involved in retail and had to do a lot of traveling, and thought it was the drive that I didn't like. So we moved closer. After about 6 months of doing that, I go, you know what, I don't think it's the drive. I just don't like my job. I just don't like it.
I did research on Alexis first to see if I felt she was someone I wanted to trust, and I figured since the Wall Street Journal trusts her and CNBC, plus I did Google searches on her, and you know, Alexis is a good person.
What's unique about Alexis is she is one savvy lady that has incredible integrity.
Just the fact that she was taking a small amount of lab students and working with them one-on-one for 3 days, I didn't see that with anybody else.
Number one thing in this business is knowledge. You gotta know how to do the deal. Not just get the phone call, but how do you execute it? And I did about 12 deals before I got a hold of Alexis. She goes, well, tell me how you're doing it. I go, boom, boom, boom. She goes, well, you really need to come to our lab.
Some people just come to the lab right away because they want to just seal the deal and be successful. Other people insist on going out and hitting the wall a few times and then go, oh, I think I better go to the lab. The lab is like a scientific experiment. We're all together, we're all experimenting, except I know the outcome, I know it works.
The lab is set up like a deal. You go through each process accordingly, and it's divided up into 3 days. So by the time the 3 days are over, you've kind of done a deal.
Day one, on the phone. You bring your own contacts, your own work that you did, and you're calling real homeowners, and you're on the phone, and Alexis is there, and one or two of the coaches are there, and we're walking you through this process.
You can make thousands of phone calls and not know why nobody's responding to you. I'm not going to embarrass you in front of everybody, but you're going to hear things from me that other people won't tell you. I had a client in my last lab who said to me, you know, I've always been good with people. I'm here because I need to understand the math. I'm weak on math. And by the end of the first day, I pulled him over and I said, buddy, you talk all the time. You're good with people because you're having 90% of the conversation and you like hearing yourself, and they're bored out of their mind. And he gave me this blank look and he goes, that's what my wife said.
You can listen to the CDs and you can be on the conference calls, but this is really the nitty-gritty.
Or the person who's really shy who says, I'm terrible with people. I'm here to work on my people skills. And they ask great questions and they're empathetic and they're caring. I'm like, you're great. You know, and then we help build them up where they need it.
It was going out into the field to actually evaluate homes, going into real homes and evaluating repairs, and having Alexis walk you through it and say, this is what you look at, this is what you don't look at. I was in property management. I dealt with vendors, big contracts, getting repairs done, thought I knew it all about that. And what I realized walking into the first house is that I would have spent twice as much on the repairs.
The thing about Alexis that makes her unique is that she has good old-fashioned experience, and she was successful. You know, this is her business. She knows it in and out. This is her life.
And then the third day, gosh, all the legal contracts and the money, you know, was worth its weight in gold, because everybody goes there, I think, worrying about the money. Okay, so I get the deal, and then what?
Coming out of the lab gives you the confidence that I don't think you're going to get by reading on the couch and shutting the last chapter and saying, honey, I'm quitting my job and I'm going for it.
I can remember when I was at the lab, she helped me with a phone call, type it on the computer, telling me what to say, and I actually almost closed the deal with a homeowner that I talked to at the lab.
What we've done is we created the lab for that safe environment where they can work everything they've already learned in the home study, but now do it the right way, and then go home and feel like they have the ability to say, okay, Alexis is in my ear now, I know what I need to do.